up, friends? My name is Jess. Welcome back to my channel. So we are officially entering April, which is my birth month, which of course means it's time to talk about me. So we're gonna go over some of my all-time favorite books. These are books that I loved when I was in high school or younger. Haven't read any of them in a long time, and I mean years long time. So maybe they're not actually that good objectively, but they are in my heart. All right, so let's start with the books that I read in middle school, elementary school, somewhere in there. The years kind of blur together. And the first books are Maybird and the Ever After and Maybird Among the Stars by Jodi Lynn Anderson. This is a portal fantasy middle grade series. Think Alice in Wonderland, except our main character Maybird falls in a lake and enters what is essentially the afterlife. It's a realm located among the stars. You got ghosts, towns that glow blue, and all of the rules of the universe are dictated by the Book of the Dead. I am ashamed to say that I never got around to finishing these series. I read these first two books and there's one more book, so it's a trilogy, and I never read the third one. It probably came out after I had already aged out of it. I'm guessing that's what happened, but I am hoping to reread these two books and read the third one just to know that I completed this series and hopefully I like the whole thing. I remember really enjoying it. I especially adored Maybird's sidekick, who I think is on the cover right here. It's a little cat named Somber Kitty, which I loved. Next up, we have Cryptid Hunters by Roland Smith. This is another middle grade book. We've got a pair of twins, Grace and Marty, I believe. Yes, Grace and Marty, who have recently lost their parents in an accident and have been shipped away to live with their uncle, who they never even knew existed. But it turns out this uncle is an anthropologist who has dedicated his entire life to finding cryptids that have long been thought extinct. The synopsis on Goodreads only mentions cryptids, but I remember this being a dinosaur book, and as someone who was raised with the original Jurassic Park trilogy, I love dinosaurs, and I really loved this book. I remember it being very fast-paced, full of action, very exciting for little me, probably not so for 23, 24-year-old me. For this one, it's maybe better if I don't reread it, because I don't know if this one would hold up, but you know, maybe I will, just for the fun of it. All right, and now we're getting into books that are a little bit older. We've got The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. I actually read this book in 8th grade, I think. I read it for class, and I remember thinking it was the best assigned reading I had ever had. Pretty sure it was the best assigned reading I ever had after that in high school too. The Book Thief takes place in Nazi Germany, where a lot of books are being banned and subsequently burned in piles. Our main character Liesel, by chance, picks up a copy of the Gravedigger's Handbook and thus starts going down a path of stealing books from these burning piles in order to rescue them. And at the same time, her foster family has decided to shelter a Jewish person in their basement. I have never met anyone who has read this book and not liked it. It's a powerful book, and at the time that I read it, I remember thinking it was a really unique writing because Death is either a character or the narrator. If I remember correctly, Death is the narrator of this story, and I thought that was really unique. I had never read that before. I still don't think I've read it in any other books before, so this is a book that I'm sure holds up. A modern classic, one might even say. So book number 4 is actually 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, but unfortunately, I do not have a copy of that book. I have a copy of The Kite Runner by this author, which I also love. Pretty much any book by Khaled Hosseini is a great book that could be put on this list, but I want to talk about 1,000 Splendid Suns because it was the first one of his that I read and my favorite of all the ones that I've read. I have no idea why I don't have a copy. I think I borrowed a copy from my teacher and that's how I read it, so obviously I had to give it back and I never got my own. But anyway, this story takes place in Afghanistan over a long period of time, starting from, you know, the Soviet invasion to the Taliban to post-Taliban rebuilding. We're following multiple generations, but it's mainly centered around two women, Maryam and Layla. You know, we're getting to see how they're impacted by the world around them, by the events that are happening, how their lives intertwine, and just generally how women in that time and place were treated in often negative ways. It was a very emotional read. I don't think I've read any book by Khaled Hosseini that hasn't made me want to cry. 100% would recommend his books. And the final book is Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. Have you made the connection? Yeah, I've had people ask me before if I picked my channel name based off of Verity by Colleen Hoover. Nope. I've never read the book. I never even knew about Verity by Colleen Hoover before I started this channel. I picked the name Verity based off of this book. This is another World War II book. It's centered around two girls in the British military who are in a spy plane that crashes in Nazi-occupied France. We don't know what happened to the pilot Maddie, but our narrator, who is only known by her code name Verity, is captured and interrogated by the Gestapo. This book is formatted as Verity's confession, where she weaves in the story of how she met Maddie. What? I don't even know where that meow came from. This book is formatted as Verity's confession, where she weaves in the story of Maddie, how they became friends, and why she had to leave her in the wreckage of their plane crash. By the end of her confession, she has either revealed all her secrets, including her mission, or she is going to be executed. I remember this being a beautiful and emotional story about friendship and how far you're willing to go for the people that you love. I am very scared to reread it because I'm worried that it's not as good as I remember, which would be a real bummer because I have no intentions of changing my channel name. Although really it's not that big of a deal because at this point it's been so many years since, you know, the word Verity has taken on a different meaning for me. But still, that would kind of suck. Alright, so those are my top 5 all-time favorite books, but I did want to throw in a few honorable mentions, you know, books that would have made this list if I wanted it to be longer, or if I had loved them just a little bit more. So we've got The Revenge of the Shadow King by Derek Benz. This is about a group of friends who play this fantasy card game that is suddenly coming to life. I remember it feeling dangerous and high stakes, more so than the other books that I was reading at that time, so it stood out to me. I have always regretted not finishing the series though. I've only read the first book. We've got Dragon Rider by Cornelia. This follows a dragon, a brownie creature, and a lonely boy united in a quest to find a legendary place where silver dragons can live in peace away from the people determined to hunt them to extinction. This was a fun, fantastical time. I think I mentioned this book in one of my old videos, My Life in Books, I think is what it's called, where I walk you through the books that have memories attached to them for me. So if you want to hear my memories of this book, make sure to check out that video. And then we have the Millennium Series, with the first book being The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg, Larsson. Listen, this series has its issues, okay? Including the kind of sexist way that it describes women. I acknowledge that issue. It's kind of bothersome. Objectively, this might not actually be a good series, but I'm a bit biased because it's a crime mystery centering around a journalist. Sorry, but I love crime fiction, and considering I majored in journalism and I worked as a journalist for a little bit, I like stories about journalists. That's all there is to it. This first book follows Michael, a journalist who has just been disgraced with a libel conviction, who has been hired to solve a 40-year-old disappearance. And so he teams up with hacker prodigy Lisbeth Salander. It's not really a fast book, there's a lot of details going on, but I always enjoyed trying to keep track of everything and seeing their methods to trying to solve the mystery. I have stayed on top of the series even after the original author died and somebody else picked it up, except for the most recent book. I have not gotten around to reading that one yet. And lastly, the Gone series by Michael Grant. You will note that this is not Gone. I don't actually own the first half of the series. I think this is book 4. I own Plague and I own Light. I don't know if there's another. I'm not sure. This series starts out with everyone over the age of 15 disappearing from this town. Those that remain are trapped inside a bubble, no outside communication, no outside resources. And then suddenly the kids start mutating. I think I started reading these books in middle school, and then I kept reading them as they came out until I finally finished the series. Probably not the best series in the world, but I remember having a lot of fun, and I hope that it would stand up. And that is it. I could probably go on and on and on about the books that I loved when I was younger. There are plenty of books that I skipped, you know, A Series of Unfortunate Events, for instance, which I also really loved, but I wanted to point out some of the books that are not so popular, not so obvious. So I hope this video gave you a little bit of an insight on the kinds of books that I was raised with. I am kind of thinking of doing a vlog this month where I reread some of these books and, you know, see if I still like them, indulge in a little bit of nostalgia for my birthday. I'm scared. I'm a little scared. But if you want to watch that video if and when it comes out, make sure to subscribe. And if you're in the mood, comment below your all-time favorite books. I would love to hear it. I love nostalgia. I will see you in the next one.